Welcome everybody. So today we'll look at an interesting project of automating the existing curtains. So we won't change the rails or the curtains, we'll use the existing setup and we'll add a drapery motor to pull the curtains open and close, and then we'll add a smart Wi-Fi switch to connect it over to Wi-Fi and also to Google. So firstly, let's take a look at the motor. So this is a motor that I found on Amazon. It has this little rubber wheel inside, so that should hold the curtain pulling string quite well in and should obviously open and close the curtains. Additionally, so with this motor you have two positions, so you have open or closed, and you have the switch here, which is basically triggers when this wheel rotates, it triggers the switch and it stops the motor. So what you do is when you configure it, so you'll need to have a closed position and then an open position here, right? So when it rolls, it will trigger the switch and turn off the motor, so the motor doesn't continue running after the curtains are closed or open. So that's important to configure this, right? But this is done once the motor is installed onto the wall and connected to the curtain, so you can play around with positions here. So that's the motor we'll use. We'll use this Sonoff Wi-Fi switch. We'll put it onto the extension cord to supply the power, which supplies the power to the motor. Unfortunately, we can't put it onto the motor cable because this one runs on 24 volts and this one requires a minimum of 90 volts, I believe. The advantage of using this one, it's a bit harder to set up than a normal, the wall outlet smart plug, which you can also use. But the advantage of this one, it has this button here. So in case of failure of internet or Wi-Fi connectivity, you can still use the button to turn on and off the motor, and obviously open and close the curtains. And to set this one up, all you do is you cut the extension cord and you plug in two cables here and into the other side. And once we'll get this done, we'll set it all up and we'll see how it works. So hopefully it will work out on the first attempt. So that's our setup. So there's two devices. Obviously we'll have the extension cord, and let's go see what we can do with it. So let me take you through the setup for the curtain automation. So we have a Sonoff Wi-Fi smart plug. It sits on an extension cord, so it's quite simple to install it. You can see in one of my other videos how to set it up. So it also additionally it has this little button here, so in case of a Wi-Fi failure or if it's unable to connect to to the server, you can turn it on and off with the button, so you can actually open and close the curtains without having a Wi-Fi in case you need to. So that's the smart plug. We have obviously the plug for the motor. Needs a conversion from US to UK. That's what we use in UAE. And the motor itself, so as you can see, the motor sits on the wall with the curtain cord running through it, and it has a little circle here to hold the string in place, and it's actually a rubber holder, so it's quite well positioned and it holds the string very well, so there's no slippage. And obviously the pointer to set the motor on and off position when the curtains are either open or closed. So that's the setup, and basically with that setup you can get the curtain automation running. So you need one of those and the motor per curtain, and off you go. And the result is, hey Google, side curtain on. Hey Google, side curtain on. Okay, now since everything is set up and running, the one thing I do want to stress is the motor that we have. To change the direction of the spin, so from open to close and from close to open, the motor needs to be power cycled. So in order to achieve it and to automate it, what we've done is, so we'll have our EV-Link app for the Sonos switch. So if you go into the, so we can see this switch for the curtain. So if we go into that switch and we go into the setting, and there's a function called inching. So what we do is we turn that on, and in my case we set the duration to 12 seconds. So what happens is when you give the command to Google or you use the button to turn on the motor, it runs for 12 seconds and then it shuts off, right? 12 seconds is enough to open the curtain, and then it will cut the power to the motor and power cycle the motor. So on the next time we turn it on, actually the direction of the motor is reversed, and it will either, if the curtains are opened, it will close it, and if the curtains are closed, it will open it. So that's one thing to note here. And if you're using any other switches, there should be a countdown timer which you can use, or a procedure just to power cycle the motor. Otherwise you'll have to give the on-off command twice. Okay. So, and as you can see, the result for it is okay. So since we got the curtains done, it's obviously still a basic setup. It's either open and closed. There's really very little smarts involved in the setup, but there are a few things that I am thinking of adding moving forward. So one of them being basically putting a solar panel in and having the motor powered by the solar panel. Also, I'm thinking of putting a light sensor in outside the curtains, and having an option of the curtains being opened and closed with the sunlight. As the sun comes up, the light sensor detects the sunlight and opens the curtains, and when the sun goes down, obviously detects that the light is gone and closes the curtains. And probably the last thing that I will be looking at adding is connecting this motor to a Raspberry Pi. So to do that, we can probably put some sensors in and just have it so instead of having two positions, open and close, you probably can have partially open and things like that. So, but that will require a bit of playing around with Raspberry Pi and the controls and the sensors and seeing how it goes. So that's about it. As you can see, it is possible, it's doable. It's not, the automation is not that hard, and it's always fun. So I've put the link in the description for the project write-up. So I did the full write-up of the project, so you can read if you want, and also it has all the links to where I got all the parts for this project. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe, and we'll see you soon again. In the next video, we'll come up with something cool as well. Thank you. Hey Google, side curtain on. Hey Google, side curtain on.